Sneaky starts and pineapple tarts. Week 8. Let's rumble. Get down to it.
Let's get down to the pineapple tarts. Tell me what that is. I've never heard of that.
A pineapple tart?
What is it? Yeah.
Is like a pastry with this pineapple gelatin in it.
What? Is it good?
Yeah. Well, hey. Are you a fan of pastries?
I
have to ask.
I like pastry. I love pineapple.
So what
I
type
can't
of
imagine
pastries
why
are
I
you
would
a
like the
fan of?
combination. I like all pastries. I don't know if I've ever had a pastry I don't like. Is there a pastry you don't like? Who are you that you don't like pastries?
To be honest, I'm not really a pastry fan.
What?
I know, which kind of, why am I talking about pineapple tarts then? Because pineapple tart is my sneaky start of the week.
Oh god, it's your sneaky pastry of the week.
My sneaky pastry of the week is a pineapple tart. I think
God.
it's gonna surpass the croissant this week. Chocolate croissant.
Chocolate croissants are good. That's a hot take.
To put up like huge fantasy pastry numbers.
In your fantasy pastry leagues.
Yeah, we're talking about, massive sell numbers in terms of pineapple tarts to croissant. If you're going off of like
Sure.
revenue.
Advanced Saber pastry metrics.
Yeah, I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. What has happened to the start of this
It's
segment?
been derailed. As soon as you said pineapple tart, this went in the trash.
It's okay though. We'll bring it back to sneaky starts. We've already said our piece about the pineapple tart. Let's actually talk about some real fantasy football
All right.
players that may or may not produce this week, but we're gonna pump them like they're gonna put up 20 points because that's what a sneaky start is. Now, just a reminder. These are sneaky starts. We're not going to pump out like some obvious names that a lot of people are still probably starting.
Yeah.
We're going to throw out some names that could be on the waiver wire this week.
Most of them are on the waiver wire.
Most of them are probably on the waiver wire, and if you do own them, they're on your bench. So these are the sneaky starts of week 8.
Boom.
Let's go ahead and start with our quarterback streamers. I feel like with Cleveland, you can basically stream whoever you want against them, and that is going to be the case.
Yeah.
Even though it is Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think we're going to get an angry Ryan Fitzpatrick this week.
Ooh.
Angry Beard.
The Angry Fitzpatrick tour. Yeah. Cleveland is just so that is like maybe the worst defense. Like people like the Saints defense gets a lot of flack, mostly because their run defense is just it doesn't exist. But Cleveland's defense overall is easily the worst defense in the league. And Fitzpatrick, he's back. He's angry. And when you kind of look at what he did earlier in the year when he had his struggles, it was in, bad matchups. It was against Arizona. It was against Seattle. And he hasn't.
Kansas City. Kansas City was the one game where he imploded.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's a bad matchup. He's only had one like really soft matchup this year, and that was Cincinnati in week 1. And that was like that wasn't a bad game.
It's true. I mean, you mentioned that Cleveland's defense is bad. Usually defenses will be bad in certain aspects, but like passable in other aspects.
Right.
Cleveland is bad all around. If you look at their
Everywhere.
fantasy points against numbers, they're the second worst against the quarterback, giving up 21.3 points a game to opposing quarterbacks. So right there, that will tell you that Ryan Fitzpatrick is a viable stream. They're the 5th worst against running back, so they don't get it done there either. They're the 4th worst against a wide receiver. They're the 2nd worst against a tight end. They're just bad against everything.
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of fantasy points available for the New York Jets offense against this terrible defense. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, he's had a bad year, but he's a viable stream play this week.
Yeah, we've seen him be a good streamer in the past, and it's just the right equation of like a really soft matchup and sort of the, a good supporting cast, which he has with, Marshall and Forte looking like he's enough to keep a defense at least somewhat honest,
Yeah.
Which I guess is what you want. And Fitzpatrick was playing pretty conservative last week when he came in, but that was when Geno was still looming. But now that Geno is gone forever, Fitzpatrick, like he has nothing to be worried about. What like Bryce Petty and Hack Attack are behind him, who are nobody. So he's going to do whatever he wants again.
It's going to be the Ryan Fitzpatrick revival tour.
It is.
And he will just finish. He's going to finish as a top 12 quarterback.
I mean, but like Not actually, he won't. But if you look at like his, if you're thinking about stashing a quarterback, like for like a longer time, this is Ryan Fitzpatrick's upcoming schedule: Cleveland, then Miami, not scary, then the Rams, not that scary, then his bye. Okay, you're not holding him through his bye, but then New England, which we've seen people have success against, but then it gets soft again. Indy, San Francisco, Miami. There's stretches where you could just like hold them for a few weeks at a time and use them.
Yeah, I mean, he does, like you said, he has weapons. He has Brandon Marshall, he has Matt Forte. With soft matchups coming up, you could, but I mean, who's going to hold Ryan Fitzpatrick on their bench?
I am.
That you're gonna?
No, I'm not.
Have you ever held a quarterback on your bench that wasn't like one of the top 3 quarterbacks?
This year is the first time I've done it, and it was it's been with Phillip Rivers, and that's just through the Denver games, and it's only because his playoff schedule is like so soft. If his playoff schedule wasn't like maybe the best for a quarterback in the league, then I would have already dropped him. I would have been like, all right, like you're fine, but who cares? Don't hold Ryan Fitzpatrick if you're not actually using him.
Yeah, just as a side tangent, because you mentioned Phil Rivers' playoff schedule, somebody else that has actually quietly been a top 10 quarterback this year that has a really, really good rest of the season schedule outside of the next 2 matchups is Tyrod Taylor.
Oh yeah, he's really turned it around.
Yeah, he's turned it around. He is the quarterback 7, I believe, right now. Mm-hmm. And yes, he gets New England this week, but he had a good game against the Patriots already this year. So that's not necessarily like a death blow for Tyrod Taylor. He gets Seattle next week on the road, which is not good. And then he has a bye. But after the bye, Tyrod Taylor's schedule is tasty.
Yeah, he'll be a good guy to pick up whatever week that is. I wasn't listening. Week 10? Was that it?
Week 10, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I don't want to talk about Tyrod too much. It's just kind of a side tangent. We're talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all there is to it. It's just it's a soft matchup. He doesn't have to be looking over his shoulder now because there's no one really there. So he's, Fitzpatrick has no regard for ball security or safety. He's going to throw it deep as much as he wants. And against this defense, that's fine to do. I mean, we saw A.J. Green catch a Hail Mary with 18 Browns defenders around him. It didn't matter.
How did that happen? Only against the Browns. That was just, thank God they have the Cavaliers and the Indians now are in the World Series because the Browns have been so bad.
Yeah, I saw some tweet that sums it up where it's like, wow, the Cavs won the NBA championship and the Indians might win the MLB World Series, and the Browns, they might win a game. Basically, like
they might win one game this year.
They might win a game. Anyway, yeah. So we don't need to get much more into that. I think he's a pretty safe streamer this week.
Yeah. The next guy, I just don't even want to talk about, so I'm going to let you take hold of the reins with this guy.
This is like if, Fitzpatrick has been picked up, if like Alex Smith, who is like a boring but safe streamer, has been picked up, if there's just like, if it's just like a wasteland out there and you need a quarterback, Brock Osweiler
there it is.
Of the Houston Texans. Woo! We mentioned that the Browns are the second worst against the quarterback. Well, you know who the worst is? The Detroit Lions, which is who he is playing. He's at home in just the most cake matchup he can possibly have. And look, man, it's a scary floor. We've seen it. We've seen what the floor is with Brock. But the ceiling in this matchup is high just because it's I don't know. Most people don't know this. The Lions don't have a secondary. They actually just they don't play anyone back there. It's just they have their
time.
Yeah, they have 4 defensive line members and then 7 linebackers, and they all just play up against the line. And in that situation, I think he's going to be fine because his receivers won't have anyone on him.
That's true. It'll just be DeAndre Hopkins streaking up the field alone,
and he'll still overthrow him. So, this is this is a really risky one. But it's we like to have like a desperation play at each position, just in case you're in a really deep league, and that's what Brock is. He's like the really desperation quarterback. Where I'd play him over some other quarterbacks this week. He's not the worst play this week.
I mean, you really just have to look at his home and road splits, and he is at home against Detroit. Mm-hmm. Week 1 against Chicago at home, he put up 231 and 2 touchdowns. That's respectable. Week 2 at home against Kansas City, he had 268 yards, almost a season high,
Mm-hmm.
with 1 touchdown, and then on the road, under 200 yards against New England. Back at home against Tennessee, 254 and 2 touchdowns. On the road against Minnesota, under 200 yards. Terrible game.
Mm-hmm.
Back at home against Indianapolis, season high, 269 yards with 2 touchdowns. On the road last week in Denver, under 200 yards. So each game he's played at home, he has gone over the 230-yard mark with 1 or 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then, those are streamer numbers. Those are fine
that's what
for
you
a
want.
streamer.
Yeah, he's gonna.
Yeah, against Detroit, he could actually surpass a season high in yardage and touchdowns. He's been terrible on the road. All of his really, really horrible performances have come against on the road. And if you look at who he's played, there is hope if you're a Texans fan, or if you have DeAndre Hopkins on your team and you really need to see something from Brock Osweiler. There is hope out there, because if you look at his road matchups, he's gone against New England, Minnesota, and Denver on the road.
That's
Minnesota
harsh.
and Denver are probably two of the best defenses in the league, maybe 1 and 2.
Probably, yeah.
Side by side. New England has a great defense as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he hasn't had it easy. Even his games at home, he's played a respectable Kansas City team, an underrated Chicago team. He played Indianapolis. That was probably his cakiest matchup of the year at home, and that was his best performance. So Detroit at home, I know I said I didn't want to talk about him, but there is hope with Brock Osweiler.
There is. He's someone that you play and don't watch the game. Ignore it. Pretend like it's not going on. Just check it after the game and see the 15 points that you got, and be like, all right, I didn't lose because of Brock.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, I mean, at home, if he starts pushing the ball down the field, like you said, Detroit doesn't play anyone back there.
There's no one back there, man. They'll all be wide open, and if he throws it 50 times, then just he has to connect on a couple of them, it'll be fine. He's gonna have 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 4 picks. Is probably what his line's gonna be.
How is he throwing picks if they don't have a secondary? What is going on?
It's gonna be that throw where he even though he's 6'18" or however tall he is, he throws it at the line and it just gets batted up in the air immediately, and then a defender just picks it up and runs away with it.
Yeah, I mean, basically Detroit's strategy is they realize that, okay, we have to stack the box with 11. So it's going to be an 11-man box. Lamar Miller isn't going to be able to go anywhere, and then Brock is just going to be back there just picking cherries, baby.
Just picking cherries. They're having that. Did you watch the game last night at all? Did you actually see any of the implosion?
Yeah, I did. I watched it.
So that incomplete pass he had that was called the fumble, where he goes to throw it and it just slips out of his hand. I was like, what? How did this happen?
That was probably the worst fumble of the year. Yeah. And I was hoping for Brock, just because I almost felt bad for him at that point, because every chance ESPN had to kind of show the crowd holding up signs of Brock Osweiler and all the digs they were taking because of his contract, I was hoping for Brock's sake that was not a fumble. I was like, did he have his arm coming forward? Is there anything that would salvage the situation? But then the replay came and it was clear as day that the ball slipped out of his hand.
Fell out of his hand.
Oh, man. That's bad. But yeah.
The best thing to come out of Brock Osweiler is the Halloween costume that I retweeted, which is Brock Osweiler, and it's a kid wearing a trash can with number 17 on it. And it cost $72 million. Oh man, that's perfect. Yeah.
I guess we'll see Brock's mental fortitude. If he can come back from that game against Denver and put up respectable numbers, then all is not lost for the Texans' offensive players.
Yeah, there's still hope. There's still hope, even if they're probably going to lose every game this year.
Help me, Brock Osweiler. You are only hope.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. That's way too much time to spend on Brock Osweiler. Yeah.
Let's go wide receivers.
Wide receivers. All right, I'll let you start because this is one of these guys is your love child.
Who I just traded. I've been trading my love children, I will say,
hey, man,
a lot.
There's no allegiance in fantasy.
No, but John Smokey Brown, I feel like we've pumped him up every chance we've had.
Well, because it keeps failing, so we keep saying it again.
Again and again. He's had a couple of okay weeks. The targets were starting to come, and then he got hurt again. He has his sickle cell. Apparently, he's practicing, and Arian says that he's most likely good to go. The reason why John Brown this week, because I don't think anyone is starting John Brown, but Carolina has bad secondary. They give up the eighth most points to the wide receiver and the third most points to the quarterback. So the quarterback wide receiver combo has been very potent, and we've seen Carson Palmer have games where he just hones in on John Brown. Another thing going for John Brown is that the other Jay Brown. So if you're ever watching a Cardinals game and you get frustrated because you hear, oh, and Brown makes the catch, and you get excited, and then it's Jerron Brown, and you just tilt into the stratosphere. Jerron Brown is out for the year. Yeah, there's no more opposing Jay Brown. It's only John Brown. John is the only Brown in town.
The only Brown in town.
Ripping off poetry here. J.J. Nelson's banged up. Michael Floyd has been terrible. And we're getting to the point in the season where Larry Fitzgerald kind of starts to wear down a little bit.
Yeah.
So in a plus matchup, it is on the road, but it's a major plus matchup against Carolina's secondary. I like John Brown, and I think it's going to be one of those games where, I mean, Arians, they need to throw the ball down the field. They haven't done it yet this year. They really haven't, and their offense at times has looked horrific outside of David Johnson. They don't look like this elite offense that they were touted to be, and I think they realize that they're going to need to push the ball down the field, because pretty soon the wheels are going to fall off for David Johnson. They can't keep on giving him like 40 touches a game. Opposing teams are going to stack the box consistently against David Johnson. They're going to have to push the ball down the field, and John Brown is the guy to do it.
Yeah, they seem to try to pull off this like complete shift in offensive philosophy of like, we are no longer a vertical passing offense. We are now a run heavy offense, and David Johnson is our only piece. And it hasn't really worked like as much as they hoped it had. It's nothing wrong with David Johnson. It's just that, you know, you can't really do that. You need some semblance of a passing offense. They went too far the other way.
Well, I mean, you just look at their record as a team. They're supposed to be a contender for the Super Bowl, and they're sitting at 3-3-1.
Yeah, that's the one. God, that game. God. Yeah. So, John Brown. I guess
it's got to happen. Yeah, it's got to happen.
It's got to happen
against Carolina.
Yeah,
just do it, guys.
Healthy. Yeah.
Throw out John Brown. You're probably dealing with bye week hell. I mean, Odell's on a bye, Antonio's on a bye. If you need to start a wide receiver, start John Smokey Brown. Although, pay attention to the practice reports because he needs to play to be a sneaky start. So this is all based on him starting the game in Carolina. Obviously, you won't play him if he's not. That would just be bold.
Yeah, that'd be
a bold move, Cotton.
Yeah. So John Brown, we'll move on to our next wide receiver.
I'll let you take this one. Wide receiver.
I'm going to switch over to a guy that I called out. Yeah. And that is one Russell Shepard.
Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson Shepard. He is the Russell Wilson Shepard of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Vincent Jackson died. And everyone was expecting that like Cameron Brate or Adam Humphries would step up and kind of get the targets in his place. And it wasn't. It was Russell Shepard, who was, you know...
Who?
Russell, I had never heard of him before either. I saw him make his first catch in this game, and I saw Shepard, and I was like, what? Sterling Shepard? What is this? I've never heard of this person.
Is there a trade?
Yeah. So it was very confusing for a second. And then they like broadcast explained who he was, and I was like, oh, okay. But you know, he got 6 targets, caught 5 of them for 77 yards and a touchdown. I mean, it was in a very favorable matchup against San Francisco, but he has a favorable matchup against Oakland, who is probably going to scheme to try and take away Mike Evans because of what he just did to San Francisco. And so this is the Mike Evans can't be the focal point of the entire offense forever. Eventually, defenses are going to adjust. I mean, he will be. But if the Bucs want to win, they need to spread it around a little bit more than they have been. And so as defenses continue to shift more and more over towards Evans, that should open up room for the other pieces. Now, for all we know, this was a one-week wonder. Maybe it goes to Humphreys this week or Cecil Shorts, who's on the team now. Or maybe it's a Brate week, who, you know, we're also going to mention later. But, you know, Shepard, you know, it's a rough week, basically, is what we're saying for sneaky starts. But Shepard is, as far as these, you know, these waiver wire dart throws go, is, you know, the target share is okay. and you kind of hope that the matchup is enough to turn him into a decent flex.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I mean, we saw Oakland take away, not that it's been hard this season, but they took away Allen Robinson last week, and
True.
it was Marquise Lee that had all the yardage against them. It was, I guess, the wide receiver too in Jacksonville. Who knows where Allen Hurns has been?
Yeah.
But yeah, Mike Evans has been so good that teams are going to have to figure out a way to slow them down. There should be targets available for one Russell Shepard.
For the Shepherd.
Not Sterling. Sterling's on a bye.
No.
Don't start him. But Russell Shepard.
Yeah.
Final.
So let's move over to our last wide receiver, keeping it short as we do now. Can't believe we're about to say this guy's name after what's happened over the last couple seasons. But here
It's
we
happening.
are, hyping
Finally, Cordell Patterson, baby.
Patterson, man.
It's time.
Yeah.
Monday night against Chicago. It's Patterson's time to shine.
Yeah, it could be. He got 7 targets last week. Caught all of them because they were all these near the line of scrimmage little things. But he turns them into big gains. Got a touchdown.
Yeah.
For the time being, at least, it seems like they're trying to make him like a real part of this offense. Now some of that has lined up with Diggs' injury, and maybe you could look at that as Diggs' return as him still getting back to full speed, maybe. But either way, for now at least we trust 3 weeks of decent targets in a row.
Yeah, 6, 6, and 7 in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he's had a touchdown in each of the last 2 games. He plays on special teams. Can give you that bonus 6 points if he rips off a return, and he has the talent to do it. He's done it before. Not that you ever want to count on that, but it could be a nice little boon to his 60 yards and a touchdown possibly. He could repeat that performance that he had against Philadelphia against Chicago, because look at what Green Bay just did to Chicago last week.
And with their secondary and third options, because apparently Tracy Porter is now suddenly a good corner, and took away Jordy Nelson, and maybe he can take away Diggs in this game, so that spells well for the other receivers in this.
So maybe Cordell Patterson has a Devontae Adams game.
I think that's what we're saying, man. I think we're saying Cordell Patterson is this week's Devontae Adams. I think that's our call.
It's going to happen. There it is. Boom. You heard it here first. We're going to tweet it out after.
Yeah.
Cordell Patterson is going to go Devontae Adams on the league this week. It's been trending upwards for CP84. But yeah, he's only owned in 5% of leagues,
Go pick
I
him
think.
Up. Yeah.
So this is one of those where you can just go pick him up. It's like a plug and play.
Yeah.
And that should close out the wide receivers. Let's move into the running backs, where it's even uglier.
Yeah, running back we were struggling to find anyone. There's the one obvious choice, or more obvious, that we'll start with, and that's Rob Kelly of the Washington Redskins. This is just that Matt Jones had fumble fingers last week, and now he's apparently nursing an injury. So who knows if he's even going to play this week. Enter Rob Kelly, who sort of profiles as that between the tackles bruiser. Yeah, and if he gets the bulk of the workload, then that's valuable.
Yeah, I mean, Gruden came out and said if Jones does not play this week, that Kelly will be the starter.
Yeah.
He said that they like Chris Thompson in that third down role. Chris Thompson will still see a lot of work, yes, but Rob Kelly will be the first and second down guy, assuming that Jones doesn't play. Now, obviously, this is something you need to monitor. Right. But even if Jones plays, Jones is trending towards not getting benched, but he's close to losing a lot of his playing time. Because, again, what was the narrative going into the season? That he has fumble issues and he hasn't fixed them yet.
Yeah,
and you can tell the coaching staff is getting frustrated. So if you have Matt Jones, if you can get value for him now, you should trade him.
Yeah.
But you might be stuck with him because it looks like his fantasy value is going to take a huge hit in the upcoming weeks. Yeah. And Rob Kelly might be one of the benefactors there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a amazing matchup, since he's kind of one of those middle-of-the-road run defenses. But, if he's getting the volume and scoring opportunities, it kind of doesn't matter. Puts him in flex consideration, at least like a somewhat safe guy out of this list that is about to turn into just just insane dart throws here in a second.
Yeah. So, and not that Rob Kelly's any that much better, right? He's the
No.
clear-cut favorite on this list. And again, just to remind you guys, these are sneaky starts. We're not going to go out and throw like Gio Bernard or guys that people are probably starting regardless. Yeah, these real desperation plays or plays that if you have the balls, you can throw them out there and hope for the production. The second guy is kind of the pass catching back in Philadelphia, Darren Sproles. We've seen Sproles have good games this year. We've seen him have, mediocre production. The thing with Sproles is that he plays about 50% of the time. Philadelphia is a split backfield. Last week, he had exactly 50% of the snaps. Ryan Matthews had exactly 50% of the snaps. So they're on the field the same amount. Now, what Sproles might have going for him this week is that they are on the road, division rival Dallas Cowboys coming off of a bye. Philadelphia's defense has been good, but they have shown weakness in the secondary. So Dallas, they might jump out ahead of the Eagles, and they might be chasing the game a little bit because Wentz has regressed a little bit, in my opinion, or a lot of it, actually. If you look at his stat lines, he's gone way downhill in the past couple of weeks. He might be playing the comeback train, and the comeback train calls for Darren Sproles to be on the field. So Darren Sproles is a sneaky start if you are desperate. If you are looking, there's lots of buys this week. There'll be a lot of buys next week. So the next couple of weeks will probably be filled with these insane dart throws, and Darren Sproles is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it at least makes sense of like it's a good run defense, and the game script might make them throw. So why not the pass catching back?
Yeah,
we're about to use the same argument. Another guy. This one is like even more of a dart throw because he literally has done nothing, and is a rookie. But why not, man? CJ Prosise of the Seattle Seahawks. There's a couple anecdotal crazy arguments I have to support this. One is an assumption of game script, which is always bad, but we're going to do it anyway. That this is the Saints at home, where Breeze has pretty much always gone nuclear. So even though it's a bad matchup for him, I just feel like he's still going to get it done, which means and Seattle on the other side has maybe the worst offensive line in the league. I mean, I was looking at Pro Football Focus's like worst performers of the week, and 4 of the 5 O-line members were the Seahawks O-line. And only one that wasn't was the center, Justin Britt. And they even said, like, just so you know, Justin Britt was only like 4 spots higher than the worst center. So like this line is, and they lost their left tackle, Sowell, who is awful. And so now there's this guy Fant as the new left tackle who's worse. Russell Wilson, even it doesn't matter how bad this pass rush is. It's this O-line can't do anything, and Russell isn't mobile. What we're going to see is that the Seattle offense always seems to struggle in the first half of games, except for last week when they struggled, period, until overtime, when all of a sudden like, wait a second, we can move the ball and miss a field goal. So they struggle through the first half of games where they like adjust and figure it out. And meanwhile, the Saints are going to run up the score, and so they're going to come out the second half, is what I'm guessing, needing to play catch up. And Prosise is the pass catching back there. They released Spiller now that Prosise is healthy, so he gone. There's no competition for pass catching. C-Mike has never been very good at it. C-Mike hasn't been terribly efficient or successful, period. And Prosise is the guy they drafted. They want him to be successful. And so I think that they try to get him involved more and more. If the game script suggests that they throw a lot, he gets used more, and it is a very bad defense. It's a very good matchup for him. And so if things shift in his favor, this is part of the reason why maybe C-Mike is, a sell this week right away, is that if things go Prosise's way, he could have this very sneaky good game.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him play 16 offensive snaps last week, so he was more involved than he ever has been. So he's getting healthier. That was only 25% of the offensive snaps, but you could see that number rise this week. Now, Seattle was in the game the entire way against Arizona, but if New Orleans comes out guns blazing like they do at home, I mean, they could be behind by a couple touchdowns, which is hard to imagine with Seattle's defense. But, I mean, New Orleans, they are a different beast at home offensively to deal with. Yeah.
A lot of this also depends on what's going on with Cam Chancellor, because without him, that secondary is a little bit of a mess. So if he's out, I feel even better about it. If Cam's back, maybe this turns into a little bit of like a low-scoring slugfest. But I think they're going to make an effort to get Procise involved either way, because Michael sort of fell into this opportunity. Procise is someone they drafted this year that they have high hopes for.
Yeah, and this is like super desperation right now. If you have to flex Procise, that means you're in trouble, and we feel bad. Basically, we're just saying that out of the fodder that could be on your bench or on the waiver wire, that Procise might be one of the better options for you.
I mean, you have to remember he was a pretty hypey sleeper in the preseason before he got hurt and Seawolk awakened. So it's possible he steals some works and runs with it. So yeah, Procise is going to be the RB1 this week, is what we're saying.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen definitely.
Boom, boom,
He'll have
boom.
1 carry for -1 yards, and 14 receptions for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns.
There it is. Boom. So basically, drop your entire team and pick up CJ Procise is what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly that. Let's move on to the tight ends.
The tight ends. Let's start with
Talked about one already.
Yeah.
Let's start with the other one.
Let's start with the more obvious one.
Okay.
And we'll save our fire take for the end. And that's we'll start with Cameron Brate.
Make America great again.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was popular last week, and it didn't really come to fruition. That was mostly because the Bucs, outside of the first quarter, they found a lot of success and they kind of turned into clock killing mode. The offense was running pretty conservatively. Now against Oakland, who have a very good offense, I don't think it's going to play out the same way. I think that they're going to need to be throwing the whole time, and that means Brate could be one of the beneficiaries of that, especially in the red zone.
Yeah, and if you look at what Oakland's defense has done against a tight end, I mean, it hasn't been good. They're the 6th worst against a tight end. Mm-hmm. Now, going back to last week, San Francisco, they have like a middling defense against the tight end. So it wasn't a super plus matchup for Brate last week.
Yeah.
This week is a plus matchup against Oakland. And like you said, they're probably going to have to, it will at least be a competitive game.
Yeah.
I don't see a situation where Tampa Bay goes up huge, and then they go back into this conservative clock killing mode against Oakland. I don't think that will happen. I think it will probably be a competitive game, but the higher probability is that Tampa Bay is behind during certain stretches of this game where they have to throw the ball to be competitive. And Cameron Brate, he's got a good spot here to put up some good numbers as a streamer.
Indeed. Not much else we need to say about that.
Here we go, the next guy. We've been waiting.
And then this guy, this is the dart throw tight end. If you didn't win the Jack Doyle lottery last week, or for some reason Brate is unavailable.
Doyle rules.
Yeah, Jack Doyle rules. And that is CJ
Anderson.
Boom! Fire take. His knee isn't hurt. He's just a tight end now. CJ Federowicz. His name is spelled so crazy it's hard to know how it's really pronounced. Federowicz.
Feta cheese.
CJ Feta Cheese.
CJ Feta cheese
of the Houston Texans. Has quietly emerged as like the safety blanket of that offense. 8, 7, and 7 targets in his last 3 games, which is like a pretty high target share for a tight end. And now they get Detroit. As just as bad as they are against the wide receiver, they're basically as bad against the tight end. They're the 3rd worst defense against the tight end. So it's a good matchup. Maybe he gets a touchdown.
I mean, the targets are what you're kind of looking at.
You're chasing the targets.
With a tight end stream, you're basically just hoping for either, like a 5-point performance or a touchdown. If you get a touchdown, then you're saved, right? But the tight end position has been such a wasteland this year that, Fedorowicz, we see this all the time with quarterbacks that can't push the ball down the field, and that's been the case with Brock Osweiler, who for a 6'8" quarterback just does not have the arm strength to throw the ball deep. It's kind of got a noodly arm, and he prefers these kind of mid-range or dump-off passes to either his running backs or his tight ends, and Fedorowicz has kind of been the guy. the guy.
Yeah, and for a little bit of context, like 7 targets doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about like a wide receiver, but for tight ends, last week that tied him for the 5th most targets for a tight end. Like tight ends just don't get targeted that much. There's only a couple guys that even crack double digits. So for him to be at 7 is that's tight end 1 targets. So you hope that materializes into something in like a very good matchup.
Yeah. That's pretty much it, I think.
That's it.
That
Those
wraps
are
up Sneaky Starts.
Yeah.
This has been the most wasteland type of week for Sneaky Starts because of all the buys.
Yeah.
Because we're in week 8 now. So a lot of the guys that were sneaky earlier in the season are not so sneaky anymore. So we kind of have to replenish the list. Guys that we've been pumping like Michael Thomas, not really sneaky.
No.
So
Devontae Booker, who would have been sneaky if C.J. Anderson didn't mysteriously die today, now it's
the league winner Devontae Booker right here.
Maybe.
Well, I have to say that because I have him. So
right,
he's
of course.
Going to be a league winner.
Basically, if Derek is ever excited about a player, it means he owns him. Is exactly what it means.
Yeah, actually, there's probably a solid trend to back that up. The players I've been hyped about the most, Spencer Ware is one. But for good reason. I legitimately think Spencer Ware's a good football player.
Oh, I mean,
anyway,
he's fine.
He's fine. Someone who just went out and traded for him.
For someone that traded a pretty good low to get him, he's fine.
Yeah, he's decent. All right.
All right. We'll wrap this
Let's
up.
cap it.
This has been Sneaky Starts. Hopefully these don't lose you your week, but they will win you your week. That's
a guarantee.
Is the tagline? It's a guarantee.
So go ahead and just comment below if you won your week because of our sneaky start.
Yeah, if it didn't work out, please don't say anything. Don't ruin our brand. But if it worked out,
just don't leave.
Then say something.
Yeah, then say hey, nice call. Don't leave a comment if it didn't work out.
No. Keep it to yourself. No one wants to hear that.
Maybe that's why we don't have any comments on the majority of our videos.
Because it just haven't worked out. And I'm oh, forget this.
None of our calls have made any sense so far. I mean, I don't know if anyone in the landscape of fantasy is calling out CJ Pro-Size this week.
It's us. We're the only one. And when it works out, we can put the bench dash seal of approval on it. And if it doesn't work out,
we'll pretend like we didn't say it. That's what all fantasy people do, right?
Yeah.
They just get eerily quiet about the calls that they miss.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Share. But anyways, this has been Sneaky Starts, Pineapple Tarts.
Pineapple Tarts. Like, subscribe, comment, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, etc., etc. And we'll catch y'all on the flippity floppity.
I feel like we need to have more confidence, some more oomph when we say the. Are we still recording?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just saying we're so awkward with our outro.
All right.
We really have to pump it. Comment, subscribe.
Oh.
Just yell.
Oh.
Just go angry Fitzpatrick on this. Comment, subscribe.
Comment, subscribe.
Oh my God, what is happening? Devontae Booker, league winner, flippy floppies.
All right. Catch you all next week.
All right, bye-bye.